Hello, welcome to my channel. I am Ree's Philosophy. Today I would like to talk and discuss on the topic of psychedelics. Now this is a video that I've been wanting to do for a while. Actually, this is my first video on my YouTube channel, so welcome. Please do subscribe, like and share if you're interested in seeing more content. So if you have any suggestions, if there's anything I missed in this video that you'd like me to discuss, please do leave a comment and I will get back to you, and hopefully there'll be a new video on that matter. Now, one of the main reasons why I wanted to do this video is because personally I am someone that is on a journey of self-actualization. I do believe as human beings we have the potential to live as our higher selves, and a majority of us are not. And there are a ton of reasons why this may be. A lot of these reasons stem from our childhood, from our upbringing, how we have been socialized in the world, our cognitive biases, our own limitations, real or perceived. And some people are able to rise above these issues, and some people are not. There are also some people that feel as though, they would like to improve. And there are many ways in which one can do this. Now, some people use religion, some people use self-help books, some people use meditation, exercise, good diet. There are so many different things you can use. But one thing that some people use, particularly those that classify themselves as psychonauts, are the use of psychedelic substances. Now, to explain a little bit more on what psychedelic substances are, let's look into a definition. What we're aware is that psychedelic substances are known as hallucinogenic or simply hallucinogens, that are a group of substances that are usually used recreationally to change and enhance sensory perceptions, thought processes, and energy levels, and they can also help to facilitate spiritual experiences. They can include, but are not limited to, LSD, plants, mescaline, DMT, ketamine, 2CB, so forth. Actually, magic mushrooms, psilocybin, that's probably one of the most common ones. But there are also a lot of other research chemicals. There are also a lot of other derivations of some of these. So I think it's important to understand that there are many, but for the purpose of this video, I will be speaking mainly on the ones that I have used myself, ones I have knowledge on, and the most common ones as well, because that's probably what a lot of you will be used to. Also, to add as well, another common one I missed off that list is ayahuasca. It's important to understand hallucinogens have been used for thousands of years, depending on, where in the world you're looking. Places like South America, they have an abundance of naturally derived, so things like ayahuasca, it's derived from a plant, so is mescaline. Whereas if we're talking about the States, maybe things like magic mushrooms and LSD were very much thriving in the 60s and the 70s, where we had this, rage of this love, this trippy acid culture that really took over the world. Now, there are a lot of studies that really talk about the benefits of hallucinogens, and actually in the 60s they were used heavily in psychotherapy. There are a lot of studies that talk about the benefits. People were tested using different psychedelic substances, and basically the results would show that there was improved or increased mood, the reduction of anxiety, increased appreciation for life, and satisfaction out of life moving forward. Now, in the modern day, it's definitely clear that the psychological research has been revived, and there are a lot of different companies that are actually focused on researching and developing psychedelics for medical and therapeutic purposes. I actually just had a look at a website called the Psilocybin Alpha. If you look at the list, there is a lot. So there's a UK-based company called Campus Pathways. They are one of the most prolific players in the emergence of psilocybin space. There's other companies such as MedMind, MindMed, and they're a psychedelic medicine company with the primary focus on formulations of ibogaine, which is actually it's quite similar to ayahuasca. I've never actually tried it myself, and LSD to treat mental health issues. So there definitely is a lot of research out there, and a lot of companies that are pushing. Now, will this make the mainstream media? I don't know. I feel like we've seen, or we know, for example, the benefits maybe of cannabis. This is slowly starting to take place. Places like certain states have gone from medicinal to recreational, and places like Canada are legal. However, obviously you can hear from my accent, I'm from London, I'm from the UK, and will this happen in Europe, all over Europe and in the UK? Probably not for any time soon. But for example, there are things like ketamine infusions, in which people are paying thousands and thousands and thousands to have these infusions, and these do actually treat people's symptoms. So I definitely feel like we could be seeing a future in which these will become the new medicine and may even take over or replace the use of SSRIs or other antidepressant, anti-anxiety medicines like Valium or Xanax, which are probably more common in other places in Europe and possibly in the States and Canada versus over here, which are being prescribed less and less due to the addictive nature, due to the level of dependency, and actually the very, very bad withdrawals. These are not medicines that are designed to be used for a long period of time because of the negative impacts. With that being said, I think it's important to kind of understand what it's like to be on these substances and how they make you feel. So I will talk pretty briefly on some of my own experiences. So being experienced, I will not classify myself as a psychonaut, but I would definitely say I have some experience with psychedelics, mainly LSD, mushrooms, and ketamine. They all are slightly different from each other. I'm more than happy to do a video breaking down the differences if you guys are interested. But for the most part, I would say LSD and ketamine are the ones that I have used the most. I do find mushrooms actually quite nauseating. They do make me feel sick, so I don't particularly like to use them. For me, acid and ketamine have an effect on the brain, which I believe they kind of allow you to open doors to thoughts and feelings that maybe you haven't experienced before. They can be very reflective, but also very outworldly. Sometimes as humans, we avoid pain and focus on pleasure. We avoid what makes us feel bad and focus on what makes us feel good. The issue with this is sometimes we don't focus on the things we need to focus on, and sometimes these are things that make us feel bad. And I find, for me, in my experience, my use of psychedelics has actually forced me to really face and confront some of these things. Now, it's not really a scary feeling. Actually, sometimes it can be very relieving and very make you feel very light, because you're able to, in a non-judgmental way, see and feel and have some clarity. And this is something that I really, really enjoy, because it enables me to say, this is where I am, and this is what I need to do, this is where I want to be, and this is what's stopping me. I do feel like, I have also had other situations in where I've had a lot of, my senses have been heightened. One thing I find very interesting is, especially if I spend the day outside, when I trip, I like to kind of go outside and spend some time in nature before I come home, is that I tend to find colors are very, very enhanced, as sounds are very, very enhanced. And the days after, I notice that this actually stays with me. And this is something that I really like, especially if you're into kind of nature, especially if you like being outdoors. You can really appreciate this when you're just walking around, and you can just really, really see the vibrancy. You can see the beauty in what is the world. And, without sounding very kind of hippie-ish, a lot of your time when you're on psychedelics, now everybody's different. I have to say that everybody will have a different experience, but in my experience, I tend to really fall in love with nature, and I really tend to fall in love with where I am and what's going on, because in these situations we kind of, our brain almost melts everything that has happened, and we're very focused on the present. There is no anxiety, there is no worries. We're fixated on what we're hearing, on what we're seeing, on our senses. Everything comes alive. I like to kind of use this example all the time, is that because I like to walk through the park and be in nature, everything comes alive. The grass starts breathing, the trees start breathing, and it's almost as if everything has its personality and has its purpose and has its place in the world. And again, I find this quite profound, because when we're going about our day-to-day lives, we are almost fixated on who we are, where we're going, what we have to do. We never really stop to look at what is going on around us and how beautiful life is and how beautiful the world is. And I feel like psychedelics can really help with this breakthrough. Now, I'm not advocating, I do believe that there are numerous ways for people to reach a high level of self-actualization and to become the best versions of themselves. We don't need to rely on a substance. We have to do the work. We have to focus on where we want to be and what we want to do. But I definitely do feel as though, as human beings, we can really start to get a better understanding of ourselves if we were to use these. Now, there are ways that, the amount you use, the setting you use, the mindset you have, there are a lot of things that can determine a good trip or a bad trip. But it is important that you do your research and you're fully aware of what you're doing. Now, a new thing that has come to light recently, that's become very popular, is microdosing. And microdosing, what microdosing is essentially where you use a small amount, enough just below the threshold before that substance becomes psychoactive, before you start to feel that substance, and you use this periodically, so maybe every couple of days or every other day. Almost to enhance your mood, to enhance your creativity, to enhance your general overall well-being. And this has become very popular, especially with the emerging push within the scientific community to study these non-recreational drugs, especially for the treatment of psychiatric conditions that could probably be more effective, as I mentioned, with few side effects than traditional psychiatric medications. So typically, so microdosing is typically where the patient takes about 5 to 10% of a standard dose, and essentially there is evidence to suggest actually that the microdosing can still bring about some of the benefits observed with full dose treatment without causing the intent and sometimes negative hallucinatory experiences. Now, obviously, if you've ever tripped, you would know that you will trip for a significant amount of time, for a few hours on end, and you may need to it is very, very engaging. You can be exhausted the next day. A lot of people recommend you have the day off to just really process, to just really be with yourself, and to just kind of feel and come to terms with what you've experienced. So the way this works is typically when you take a psychedelic, it actually triggers the serotonin to a receptor. This is what is responsible for almost an altered state of being or consciousness. And what this does is that it causes your cortical excitation, and in result builds new neural connections. So psychedelics are known to primarily affect serotonin, so a chemical messenger that helps nerve cells communicate with other cells in the body. So serotonin is popularly portrayed in the media as being responsible for happiness, but in reality, its functionality is more complex and widespread. In fact, serotonin is associated not just with mood, but also with cognition, sleeping, eating, memory, and even processes, believe it or not, such as vomiting. And so since it's widely important in the body, there is molecular regions called serotonin 2 receptors located throughout the central nervous system. So although it's not fully understood, we do know that the psychedelics are responsible for cognitive, sensory, and motor functions, and these become excited, ultimately leading to hallucinations and some other effects. Some studies have even found psychedelics to increase neuroplasticity, which leads to the creation of more connections between neurons and could potentially explain the novelty of intense psychological experiences. As a microdosing is thus theorized to work in the same fashion, but simply at a milder degree. And that's why people can take it over, a period of days and for a long time. There have been a lot of surveys have been very positive, and there was one survey, an international survey actually, that concluded 79% of respondents reported improvements in their mental health after microdosing. In other studies, participants described experiencing better creativity and productivity, in addition to decreased levels of anxiety and depression. Although promising, these results must be obviously taken with a grain of salt. There is no way to confirm or enforce doses, scheduling, and type of psychedelic used. Again, people have different experiences, people will react differently, so there's no one shoe fits all. And obviously, the issue is, depending on where you are in the world, it's more than likely that actually your use of psychedelics is still illicit. They are still illegal. So there's something to understand. There's also actually another really interesting study that came out, and basically it was a study that focused on rats, and essentially what it was, and how unethical this may be, there was a setup. So there was a pool with no escape, and there was two conditions. So a rat that had used microdose and one that was untreated. So what was found was that the rat that was microdosed was swimming and attempted to escape, and continued swimming and attempted to escape after a long period of time, whereas the rat that was not treated tried to swim and escape, but after a period of time became inert and stopped swimming and did not attempt, and ultimately actually died. Now again, this can be this can suggest some degree of improved resilience and optimism in the microdose rats. There was also another study with microdose rats with psilocybin, so the component of magic mushrooms, and with a different psychedelic called ketamine, and both were found to mildly alleviate anxiety in rats experiencing a stressful maze. So there are definitely benefits, but there are obviously always safety concerns. So I think we need to first of all understand that, being very careful of where you get your substances from, checking, doing tests to make sure that they are real, that they are what they say they are on a container, making sure you're taking the right dose, making sure in the right setting, and making sure you're being safe. There have also been, there's a lot of research out there on people having bad trips, and also a lot of research on people, having reported unwanted symptoms such as migraines, overstimulation, difficulty sleeping, and physical discomfort, and sometimes even anxiety. So it's still too early, really, I think, although there's a lot of evidence to suggest, it's very hard to confirm, to recreate. Everybody's experience is different. But I'm interested in seeing what the future holds. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If there's anything I've missed out, if there's anything you'd like me to discuss, please let me know. Have a good one.